Let's recap the skills you need when working out word sums about length. Firstly, you need to know how many millimeters in a centimeter, how many centimeters in a meter, and how many meters in a kilometer. And that we can actually draw a little table for. And then we can say the 10 millimeters make a centimeter, 100 centimeters make a meter, and 1,000 meters make a kilometer. Just a reminder, I don't know how many of you knew this, but there's also other units of length that we're not working with right now. So we also get decimeters and decameters and what other one could we refer to? We even get hectometers, and you'll in high school learn how to work with those as well. That's why, I just wanted to tell you that's why there's not 10 centimeters in a meter and 10 meters in a kilometer. Wouldn't it have been easier to say 10 millimeters is a centimeter, 10 centimeters is a meter, and 10 meters is a kilometer? That would have been easy, hey? But how it actually works is that 10 centimeters is called a decimeter, and 10 decimeters is called a meter, and then 10 meters is called a decameter, and then 10 decameters is called I think a hectometer, and then 10 hectometers is called a kilometer. Very complicated. You don't need to know any of that right now. So just remember that it goes 10, 100, 1,000, and that's just because we use these three units the most. Yes? Yes, please do. Right. Now, let's use a different color. If I tell you that I have 5 kilometers, what must I do? How many meters will 5 kilometers be? How many meters in 5 kilometers? 5,000. So I times by 1,000 to get from kilometers to meters. If I tell you that I have 2 meters, how many centimeters will that be? It'll be 200 centimeters because I times by 100. If I tell you that I have 5 centimeters, then you'll know how many millimeters is that? 50 millimeters because I times by 10. I can also go other way around. If I tell you that I have 30 millimeters, you can tell me that that is 3 centimeters because I divide by 10. If I tell you that I have 500 centimeters, you know that that is 5 meters. So I divide the number by 100. And if I tell you that I have 6,000 meters, then that's 6 kilometers because I divide by 1,000. Okay. All good? And I think you guys have been using this pretty successfully. I'm going to do a few examples now, and in my examples I want to include decimal numbers because I think the only hiccup is when the decimals get involved. Sorry, I'd rather scroll down here and work over there. So let's look at a few. If I ask you to convert 30 millimeters into centimeters, what do you have to do? Or what's the answer? 3. So what did you do? You divide it by 10. If I tell you I have 4,000 meters and I ask you to turn that into kilometers, that would be 4 kilometers because I divided by 1,000. So that's all easy. Now let's work with one that will give me a decimal answer. How about 3 millimeters into centimeters? If I have 3 millimeters, now I want you to answer me in centimeters. Beautiful, 0.3. Remember, 3 centimeters is 3 millimeters is definitely less than a centimeter. So it will give me a decimal number. And all that I do is I need to remember that to go from millimeters to centimeters, I divide by 10. Now dividing by 10 could mean that I move the comma. You can always imagine a comma at the back of the number. We don't write it because we don't need it, but when we do need it, we start there at the back of the number. And when I divide, the comma moves to the left one space. Okay? And now the comma's there. Do you get a number such as comma 3? No. What does it still need? It still needs that 0. So you put the 0 in because you must have something in front of the comma. That's easy enough. So if I tell you that I have 4 meters and I want you to turn it into kilometers, then how did I turn meters into kilometers previously? If you look over here, what did I do? Meters to kilometers. I divided by 1,000. So I must do the same here. Now, remember when we divide, we make the number smaller. So the comma should move to the left. So I'm going to start with a comma here at the back. And I'm going to move it as many times as I have zeros. So there's 1, 2, 3 zeros. So I'm going to move it 1, 2, 3 spaces, which puts it there. The gaps that it jumped over must be filled with zeros. Okay, so I end up with comma 0, 0, 4. Is that good enough? What do I need? We always put a 0 in front. Please just remember, it doesn't have to be 3 zeros because I was dividing by 3 zeros. Okay, that depends on how many decimals I had. One of those zeros cancelled out moved the comma to in front of the 4, and then 2 more gaps, so I had to do 2 more zeros. Another way to think about it is to say, if I have 4 and I divide it by 10, you guys know that's 0, 4, right? Then take 0, 4 and divide it by 10 again. That's then 0, 0, 4. And then take 0, 0, 4 and divide it by 10 again. That's 0, 0, 0, 4. Can you see the pattern? Why did I show you to divide it by 10 3 times in this case? Because we wanted to divide by 1,000. Okay, I'm going to erase that. That's just a little side note. So, to make a rule, scroll down a little, I would write the rule as follows. When we divide, and this is specifically for if you see commas in your number or if you see your number is too small to divide by 100 normally, then the comma will move. Where's the comma starting point if it's not a decimal number? At the end of the number. So when I divide, the comma moves this way, left, because that makes a number smaller. When I times, the comma will move to the right, because that makes a number bigger. And this rule is going to help you not make mistakes when you have to use decimal numbers. 3 more examples, then I'm done. Let's use this rule. So now I can tell you that I have 0,03 meters, and I would like you to turn that into centimeters. So you firstly need to go back to your table and tell me, how do I turn meters into centimeters? What must I do to turn any meter into centimeter? Times by 100. Times by 100. Now, our rule says when I times, the comma moves right because the number is going to get bigger. So I'm going to take the comma that's now currently there and I'm going to move it 1, 2. How did I know to move it twice? 1, 2 zeros means I move it twice. So now the comma is after the 3. The number kind of now looks like this, 0, 0, 3, comma. What? How can I change that number to look better? Look, I've taken the comma, I've moved it 1, 2 spaces to the right. It's now there. What I'm left with is 0, 0, 3, comma. You don't have to write it this way. Firstly, do I really need that comma at the end? No. Take it out. Do I need 2 zeros in front of a 3? No. Answer? 3. 0,03 meters is 3 centimeters. It makes sense that it's a tiny little 3 centimeters and just a small part of a meter. Hey, 3 centimeters can't be 30 meters. Think about it. I always tell my students to do the DIRT test. So the DIRT test is, we all sometimes jump to the wrong side. So like when I said, what must you do? And you said divide by 100 instead of times by 100, right? But in the end, you must look at your answer and say, will this tiny little meter, which is a lot less than 1 meter, will this be 300 centimeters? It can't be. Okay. Or you can ask yourself, if you said 5 kilometers is 0,5 meters, think about that. What sounds wrong with that? If you get to an answer, maybe you just accidentally times or divided by the wrong thing, and you end up telling me 5 kilometers equals 0,5 meters. If you look at this, what's bothering you here? How big is a kilometer, guys? From here to where?
From here to maybe to the houses.
To the houses on Dimmersfontein, to the village. That's a kilometer. That's 5 times there and back. You're telling me that's the same as half a meter. Show me half a meter with your hands. Show me half a meter. Is this how far it is to the village? 5 times? No. So they can't be equal. Are you understanding what I'm saying? The DIRT test means look at your answers and just make sure, did you not maybe times when you were supposed to divide? And it's often you can clearly see that you've missed something because it doesn't make sense that the big one is the same as such a small unit. Okay. Let's do another one. If I have 20 cent, what am I writing with? This. I want one. Oh, I'm writing with that. 20 centimeters, and I would like to turn that into kilometers. Now, tell me, is this going to be a very big kilometer, like 200 kilometers? No, no, no. This has to be really, really small and definitely smaller than 1 kilometer, eh? Because 20 centimeters is not even a whole ruler. So it has to be smaller. So clearly my answer is going to be something with the 0, 0 something, something. Let's look at what I should do. From centimeters to meters, we divide by 100. And then from meters to kilometers, we divide by 1,000. So I take 2 steps. Why? Because there's a unit in between centimeters and kilometers. And I first need to go to meter, to the middle unit, which is meters. Dividing by 100 and then by 1,000 is the same as dividing by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. Okay, all I did was I added up the zeros. It's the same thing. I'm going to write here or. So I need to make this number smaller. I'm going to put the comma at the back by, that's a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. 5 jumps. 1, I hope I can fit them in. 2, 3, 4, 5 jumps. Put the comma there. That shows me that it's comma. 1, 2, that was the 3 gaps that I jumped over. And then 2. Now let's look at what I've written here and how I can change it to look better. I don't need a 0 after a decimal number. I can take this one out. Can I take these zeros out? No. They are making that to 10,000th of kilometers. So you can't take that out, then you're changing the number. But you can take the last one out. Okay, and then if there's a comma in front of a number, what do you need?
Yeah.
You just need this placeholder 0 to show that there's no whole numbers. Was this the last one? One more. Zero comma 012 kilometers, and I want to turn that into centimeters. So I just went the other way around. Previously I went from centimeters to kilometers. Now I want to go from kilometers to centimeters. So just the opposite is going to apply. To go from a kilometer to a meter, I times by 100 because there's 100 meters in a kilometer. Then I times by 1,000 because there's 1,000. It's actually other way around. Let me rather say it the right way. Here's my eraser. When I go from kilometers to meter, I times by 1,000 because there's 1,000 meters in a kilometer. Then I times by 100 because there's 100 meters. Because there's 100 centimeters in a meter. Woo, confusing myself. Right, so in the end, I'm doing the exact opposite of what I just did before. I'm now timesing by 100,000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. Timesing means the comma moves to the right because you want to make it a bigger number. And so I'm jumping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 jumps. How many zeros must I add at the back? 2. I'm looking at 0, 0, 1, 2, 0, 0, and then the comma at the end. Now that looks really silly. Let's fix that. I don't need a comma at the end of a number, and I don't need zeros at the start of a whole number. So my answer is 1,200 centimeters will be 0,012 kilometers.